I don't know if I did. I tried yoga to get rid of the stress because I flipped out yesterday. But I couldn't. I got like there's a table part, or I guess you're on your hands and knees. Mm-hmm. And then you stick your leg straight out.
Yeah.
No one knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's as far as I got, because when you're supposed to get on one hand and put the other hand in the air.
Yeah.
Just wobbling and all weak, just like. So and then I got back on the table and it was just shaking. So I realized I was done at that point. Oh man, ever since I killed my knee and whatever, it's just weak. I was doing pretty good until I hurt my knee playing with your dog.
Hold on a second. You think you were doing pretty good? You think?
Yeah, my knee.
You think you were doing pretty good before that? That was just like 8 months ago. You were falling apart long before that.
I don't think it was 8. Well, I don't know when it was.
I'm so glad that we were able to have the medical write-up from you, your medical update. I hurt my knee.
Yeah, and then you called. It's like you were home. You were down. I could have heard your voice. You could have just said something.
I wasn't sure if you were asleep or
what. Or
what.
texted me, and then you're calling, and I'm in the middle of. And then I was like, fuck you. And then I had to.
You mean the yoga you were doing to relieve stress? I ruined that by just making a phone call to you.
Yeah, because I was in the middle of the thing, and then I had to get back on my knees and then back on, and then crawl over.
But wait, I wish this was a video podcast, because watching you mimic the moves you were trying to do is even funnier.
Yeah, because at this point, just getting on my knees is ridiculous. Like, that hurts.
Yeah, well, good for trying, working on it. You know, you try it again, it'll work. You know what I mean? You try it again.
I'm assuming eventually I will be less miserable.
It gets easier. Okay, everybody, quiet on the set.
Film Reverie Podcast, take 79! Yay!
And action. Hello, Film Reverie listeners. This is Michael Beckemeyer, and as always, I am joined by
the reluctant balding Ewok.
The balding Ewok. The reluctant balding Ewok.
Yes.
I'm the reluctant Beckemeyer to your balding Ewok.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm reluctant to be with the balding Ewok.
Okay.
I'm hesitating.
But that cancels... we cancel each other out then, because both reluctants equal, you know...
That was like a weak little...
That was math.
Yeah. And this week we have Zeke Zelker, who's got the most... I don't know what that thing is, where you're repeating
Zeke
sounds
Zelker,
in the thing. But he's a filmmaker and a transmedia guy who does a lot of, like... what I read was that a lot of your films have like multiple elements, multiple sides of the story through different forms of media, which is cool. I want to talk to you about that. Zeke Zelker, hello, welcome. Clap, Brad.
Hey, thanks for having me, gentlemen.
So, so tell us, we'll talk about your movie Billboard, which we're lucky enough to get to see before we talk to you, which doesn't always happen.
Awesome.
But, where did you start? Where'd you come from?
Well, I came from my mama. And so I was born in upstate New York, and then my mother moved back to her hometown of Allentown, PA. We have a long history in Pennsylvania where my family started an amusement park in 1884. And so, I grew up pretty much in an amusement park. I was a standing carny. Got to do a lot of crazy things, and that's one thing that really influenced how I create today is based off of those early years spent at the park.
Right. I read that you were like a clown. You were a clown. You got your start in entertainment as a clown, right?
Yeah,
So,
my first job was as a clown selling balloons. I don't know how many people have sold balloons on asphalt in clown makeup with Millar balloons in the middle of August in Pennsylvania. It sucks. There's no way around it. There's no pleasantries around it. It just flat out sucks.
well, you're right. I always think about Pennsylvania as a cold place, which
No,
it is,
not at
I guess,
all.
in the winter. But in the summer, because we're in Florida, not hot
Oh
is.
gosh, that's
yeah.
hot. Humid.
Hot,
Yeah, it's
hot,
worse
yeah.
than we are. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so like the park had a lot of. I learned so much there, good and bad. But yeah, my first job was literally as a clown selling balloons, and then as I worked my way through the beautiful entertainment career, the next big stop was on John Waters' film Hairspray, where I was a dancer in the Corny Collins Council, and that gave me enough, enough knowledge to then go to film school.
Nice. So you parlayed
joking.
you parlayed the clown balloons and the John Waters part into film school.
Yeah, that's where else do you learn about
It
film?
makes
when I was
perfect
a
sense.
clown on a John Waters film.
Makes
right?
perfect sense. Yeah,
It
it's
makes
perfect.
total sense.
You knew more about film than Brad does.
That's not true.
Just from those two stints.
Dude,
Is that it?
I feel like nobody knows more about film than anyone else because technology, everything's always changing. So
I
you-
understand.
You sound like you're making an excuse for why you don't know
I'm
anything.
just saying we all don't know anything because every time we go to shoot, everything's new again.
That's true. What that means is we should make films more frequently instead
So
of.
you never know what the hell you're doing. Is that what you're trying to tell me? You never
Yeah.
know what the hell you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the fun of filmmaking. What the hell am I doing?
For you, maybe, but it makes working with you difficult.
Oh gosh, that's great.
So
That's great.
I read the other thing I read is that your first film was called. I don't know. Is it your first film? In Search of?
No, that's not
Okay.
my first film. My first
Okay.
film was a film called Affairs
Okay.
that I shot over the course of 6 days, black and white film. Ended up
shit.
screening the film and made money on theatrical with it, and that ended up enabling me to be invited to the Sundance Producers Conference.
Wow.
Nice. So talk about getting to shoot on film. What's that like?
Oh, it's a completely different animal. In fact, I still shoot on film every once in a while.
Nice.
With my next project, I was just talking to one of my techs this past week, and we're actually going to be shooting some flashback stuff on an old K3 hand crank camera because I want that really surreal kind of not certain of what's going on kind of feel.
Yeah, like not
that only.
perfect.
That only that can do. Like we played with that camera once before in one of my other projects, In Search of. But working on film slows things down a little bit, but at the same time creates a whole different level of regiment in the filmmaking process. And you also have to be a lot more careful. You have to think things through more. The challenge with today's filmmaking is that you can shoot,
Yeah.
and you have all this stuff, and so that ends up elongating your post-production.
Yeah.
And so, because you can try so many different things because the media doesn't cost that much. But when you're shooting film, and a 400-foot mag, of -16 at that time was like $160, and then have it processed was
Yeah.
like another 400. So like for basically 11 minutes is $500.
Yeah, you've got to just for 11 minutes. Yeah, so you've got to be like so much more decisive in the moment than and prepared. Really, like
Yes.
I teach high school television production. That's my day
Right.
job, and that's the thing that these guys, kids, people, teenagers, whatever they are, monsters, they don't have to make any decisions.
See, it was interesting. I was chatting with somebody not too long ago, and that is a big problem with filmmaking today.
Yeah.
Is that things have gotten so wishy-washy, and there's no particular protocol now. That like, oh well, we'll just fix it in post, or
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter that much. And like to me, it all freaking matters.
It all matters.
What I shoot, I want to see. And
Yeah.
and the thing is too, it's like I'm very much a producer, and so like I really worry about how much things cost and going overtime and scheduling and everything else. And so I have a very regimented crew.
Yeah.
I can't stand when you're late. That'll literally the only thing that makes me seriously angry is when somebody is late. I'm not kidding. And it's
You
just
sound
one of
like
those-
me.
Yeah, well, it just is because it costs me money.
Yeah.
You have one guy half hour late. You're holding back 25 other people possibly.
Yeah.
Now that half hour now costs me 15 hours or 12 and a half hours of work. It's like have to think like that, and that's the thing. So I firmly still believe, even though this last project was on using various digital platforms, I firmly still believe in using the old filmmaking methodology.
Yeah, and editing. Even with editing, I mean, I learned how to edit tape to tape, like old school mid 90s tape to tape.
Okay.
And so you had to know what your edit was going to be, beginning, middle, and end, because if it's on a tape, if you mess up, you got to start over, Yeah. And just today, by the way, I love the freedom you have through nonlinear editing. I really do. You can try 1,000 different things and get it just right. It's perfect. It's great. I love it. But I always know what I want it to be in my mind or on a piece of paper before I sit down and start editing. I've made some decisions prior to.
We were trained to edit in our heads.
Yeah.
As we're writing for one, but also as we're shooting, we're editing. Okay, this is what I got. I'm missing this. How do I fill that in? And
nonlinear editing is like a beautiful, amazing magic trick of technology. I love it. We're able to produce so many nicer looking things quicker because of it.
Yeah.
But dude, there's no real editing discipline I've found, like with people who just sit down in front of a Mac and learn how to edit on Premiere or something like that. There's no like editing discipline unless the person's like a true editor and they know like some people just are like, "Oh yeah, I can edit." But you can't really edit if you can't make something 20 minutes that needs to be 20 minutes and you come up, oh, it's a little short or it's a little long. No, it has to be 20 minutes. Especially if you're editing for like television or a program or something like that. And people don't know what that was like. People, like students these days, they grew up with nonlinear editing in their back pockets. Like they can edit shit on their phone and they think that's editing. It's not.
Right. It's funny because I still go back to film frame counting in my head when I'm even editing, non-linearly, because that's how I know it, and it's so strange. And when I'm trying to do like a sequence, I'll actually do math and figure out, okay, I need this many frames of that, this many frames of this, and then I really don't know how to edit with Premiere. I kind of fake it.
Yeah,
but I do things, like if I need to have like a freeze frame, I'll literally copy that frame, like as long as I need the freeze frame for, because I don't know how to stop it.
That's real. That's real. That's real.
That's how I would do it in film. And it works, but it's completely ass backwards of how you should do it. I'm just like, well, I know the concept of how to do it in film, and all those concepts still work in it.
Yeah.
But when somebody looks at my timeline, they're like, what the fuck is this? Well, it's how I created it. And they're like, well,
old school,
works,
baby.
but it looks like Frankenstein.
That's old school, baby.
So I'm not an elegant editor by any means.
I could very easily show you how to make a freeze frame if you want. It will save you a lot of time.
You literally just right click, and make freeze frame, and you're done.
But don't change your process, because
kidding?
No, we're not kidding. You can right click and it says make freeze frame, and then you can drag it out as long as you want it to last.
That's not how I do it. I literally copy and paste it, like however many frames I have.
That's okay.
To do
You're just an eccentric. You're eccentric. You like to.
Yes.
It's like you're like a hipster film editor. You like the the old way.
And I still listen to the radio. So fuck you.
Oh my god, yeah. I avoid the radio unless it's NPR, to be honest with you.
Oh my gosh. You can't do that. I'm bringing back radio. Don't you know that with this project?
I saw that. And if I wanted to ask you about not just radio, but AM radio.
But he just, I don't have a question to ask. I was going to ask that. He just answered it.
So
what's that?
Like, why is the movie about the radio? What inspired it? You just answered it. You bring it. That's your thing.
Well, yeah. No. So it's funny because I wanted to do this project for years and years and years and years. And to tell it right, I always wanted to tell it from the radio station's perspective. Mm-hmm. And I felt like the only way to be able to do that is if I actually owned the station. And so I literally created the station, WTYT 960, that exists online, where bands upload their music, and our playlist is based off of how often bands share themselves on Facebook and how active they are. Okay. Or not just on Facebook, but other platforms as well. And so I just wanted to tell the story this way. And so that's one reason why we first created the radio station. Then we shot the web series, and then we shot the film. but it's just a different beast. And like, I love radio. I wish radio really became localized again, and the conglomerates would basically go away from it, because I'm not kidding.
That's me about everything. That's me about.
It's like because the thing is, like, you're missing the personality, you're missing the down home feel. Like, I still believe in local newspapers.
Yeah.
And there's a beauty to it. Why? Well, just because it's like what's going on in your community, and there's something beautiful about having black ink on your hands.
Yeah.
Not on white shirts. You know what I mean? There's something gorgeous about that. Oh, you must have been reading the New York Times again. Like, yep, it's Sunday. So yeah.
So yeah, you are you're like an old school purist.
Who embrace technology very quickly, though.
Yeah.
Say, like, with how I create and how I distribute, I very much, I totally adopt to things without a problem. But at the same time, I feel like some things are lost. It's like, all of a sudden, it's really cool to have a record collection again. When I had record collections just to try and get laid as a teenager, and it's like, it's like, trying to find the craziest LPs and everything else, and then of course we threw them all out, and now they're all collectible items, and like, oh my god, why did I do that? So
I still have LPs. I had to lug those. You had to lug those for me over here.
We just moved this weekend from the house we were in to a new place, and I found boxes of CDs that I haven't opened in 10 years.
CDs. I'm talking LPs.
I know, but I was a CD kid because I was a teenager in the 80s. So
vinyl, man.
I never really took to records the way you guys are about to have this conversation about vinyl.
Yeah, I was like, wick in the day.
But I really I almost have a problem getting rid of them, even though I can pick up my phone right now and find any of those albums on Apple Music to play right there. But there's something about holding them. I also have like hundreds of books that I've pulled out of boxes to put in bookshelves. And even though I probably have cracked open like less than half of those books, I still like having them there. I like the smell and the feel of like actually being able to put your hand on something like terrestrial. Like you were talking about terrestrial radio is like, it's like a real thing. The stuff like the stuff we're listening to nowadays or we come across is digital, and it almost like being that it's digital, it almost never really exists since there's no there's no tangible put your hands on it media involved.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting thing you're talking about CDs, because you own those songs if you have the CDs. If you're going on Apple Music, you're licensing to use those songs. It's two totally different ways of looking at it as well.
Yeah.
So in the long run, by you licensing those songs through Apple, it could cost you more by doing that than if you own the CDs. I know it sounds crazy, but that's just the way I think.
Over time. And but the cool thing that I read about your project was called, the one we're talking about is called Billboard, and I guess in a second we'll have you explain what the basic premise behind your story.
Yeah, because I want to break down because you had the YouTube thing and all of that. I want to break all that down.
You used your radio station, your online radio station, where people were submitting their songs as almost like a crowdsource or some sort of to find music to include in your movie.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's really cool because it helped just by, even if that band just put their thing on your radio station and it played through the playlist and everything, that's helping them, but it's also a way for them to come find you so that you don't have to go all over the place just to try to license music for your film. Because that is one of the things about your film is that you had a almost, I won't say consistent because it makes it sound like it's wall-to-wall music, but like consistently like bands recorded tracks, and you also had a great score, but which I also mentioned to Brad, you had a great score, but the music soundtrack for your thing was full of music.
It was, yeah.
So that was cool. But before we go too far into that, please just tell people what the premise for your film Billboard is, so that we can keep talking about it without confusing people.
Sure. So Billboard is about a struggling radio station, WTYT 960, that decides to pull itself out of the ratings basement by hosting a Billboard City contest where 4 people live on a billboard to win a mobile home and $960,000. So what we did is I created different aspects of the project. So we first started the radio station WTYT 960, which acts as the backbone for the story. We then shot the web series that is which is basically like a live feed, WTYT 960's live feed of the contest. So we never really leave the billboard for the web series. And so that is solely about the 4 people living on the billboard. And then the feature film focuses on the radio station that hosts the Billboard sitting contest. So their struggles, their successes, all the crazy things that they have to do to be able to maintain this contest, how things are going, how things are failing, how things are succeeding, all these sorts of things. And so it's a matter of telling a story in 2 different points of view, just like you would as a good debater. A good debater learns both sides of the story to be able to figure out and formulate their own opinion. Not being swayed one way or the other, but literally spending the time and formulating your own opinion. And that's the kind of thing of what Billboard is. It's almost like a study on our times in terms of how we access media, how we consume media, and then also, too, it's a matter of what do we do with it then. And also the responsibility of media, because people don't realize it, that this film is a lot about media, but I'm not necessarily talking just the news media. I'm also talking about social media, because social media has a lot of power. And that's what people just don't realize. It's like they can crush somebody, with a couple of clicks,
Yes.
and that's what it's just, and that's where we are as a society. And that's one reason why I think going back to analog in certain respects is kind of a godsend, because then you have that human-to-human contact again.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that jumped out to me about your movie, your film. We were talking about that earlier a little bit. Is that it is even the concept of the billboard sitting contest where people sit there. That reminded me of those things that car companies used to do, where you could keep your hand on the car. Whoever took their hand off was disqualified for the thing, and whoever was left standing 24 hours later got to keep the car, that sort of thing. I think there was even that 70s show episode about that, but that was a real thing that's even that is a throwback from a generation ago. You know what I mean? Even
absolutely.
further back than that. So it felt like if you hadn't included social media and the thing, this could have been theoretically a movie from the 70s or the 80s. So it has sort of a timeless concept on how information and rumors and all that stuff spread, and how people's words get twisted, and you were talking about somebody being misunderstood by something, or people just drawing a conclusion about something, and your guy is really just trying to help the community, like he says in your story, but it's not perceived that way by a group of people, because people are assholes, but sort of a thing.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, and so that's one reason that I end up being a little bit vague sometimes about what the story is, just because it is pretty complex. Yeah. And the thing is I wanted to create it in today's day and age because I wanted to play with technology, and also would have cost me a bloody fortune if we actually did make a period piece out of it, because
right.
Building a billboard next to a highway is nuts enough, and then on top of it, trying to get enough cars to line a major highway in the right time era would just have been a nightmare.
Did you? That's what I wanted. Another thing I wanted to ask you. Did you build that billboard, or was that?
Oh, we did. No, we built it. It was enough lumber to literally build a small house.
Jeez.
It was enormous. And we ended up doing is we kept it up there for about a year, and then after we took it down, we donated all the lumber to Habitat for Humanity.
Oh,
so
nice.
it got put to good use.
So. Okay,
well,
go ahead, Brad.
I was just sort of curious about the logistics of the YouTube series with them living on the billboard.
The web series, yeah.
Right, because my first thought was, he just goes there and they just shoot all day and maybe they have a few days. But the way you were talking earlier made it sound like they really did camp out there.
They did. Yeah, we actually shot that over the course of 4 weeks. We were on 4 days, off 3 days because it just got to be too much. And so we were literally shot the entire thing outside in the elements. And also we ended up having to raise all of our gear 10 feet into the air to be able to be level with the billboard sitters, because obviously we wanted to be able to shoot up on them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was a challenge. But yeah, they are out there for the duration of it, and it was not easy by any means. I would not suggest anybody else trying to do this because it's not easy. You know, it's like what was the movie a couple years back with was it Reverence with
Reverence.
Yeah, Reverence, right?
Remnants. Remnant,
whatever
yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but it's like I'm like that's like a freaking cakewalk what they did there compared to what we do. You know, like literally,
and they had however many,
and
they had however many millions of dollars in Leonardo DiCaprio to do it.
Digital bear.
And a digital bear, yeah.
Yeah. I would have hired a damn bear, damn it.
So, your score. First of all, your movie looks great. Like the cinematography, and so not just the shots. Like that's a great shot. It's not like that, but it's just the look and feel of your film was well shot. And well, you're welcome. So your cinematographer and you did great making it. It feels like a real film. A lot of times you see indie movies that don't feel like a real film. Like our film might be one of those.
Yeah,
but
I noticed at the beginning it did seem like there was a filter, or the cinematography. I noticed it was like fuzzy or a little brighter.
Well, yeah. I'm actually really glad that you noticed that, because we actually used to throw back to the era when about the contest that this is actually loosely based on, which happened in '82. We ended up using old lenses from the '80s on all of our digital cameras.
Nice.
So like we shot on red and we shot on Blackmagic, so we were able to get adapters for EF mounts of old lenses that we used, that literally from the '80s, because I wanted that look. I wanted a very specific look for it. And so some people are like, "Oh, what's that?" and everything else. In fact, in some instances, we even pulled the lens off the camera and used a magnifying glass as the lens. And so that's completely intentional for the flashback stuff that we ended up doing.
Yeah.
I know that's nuts, but we did it, and it looks really cool. And but everything has to have a purpose. I don't want to do things because it looks cool. It has to drive the story and make sense for the story.
So that's what makes something stand out. It's like there's so many things you can do in a computer to make it look like a certain thing, but
I don't know how to do.
But like you said, taking the lens off and just holding a magnifying glass in front of it is so like that's in camera shit right there that you can't duplicate, and it's almost like the imperfections of doing something like that you can't duplicate. It's unduplicatable. So there's nothing that anyone else could do to even steal that look unless they just took their lens off and did a magnifying glass, which would also make it completely unique to them as well, because it's how you held it, how you twisted it, all that stuff. It's so
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, it's interesting though too. Is I'm certain you have a lot of people on your podcast here, but the thing that I would love to get answers for is, or just to have people ponder, is because we have these amazing little digital cameras in our back pockets called phones, that I'm almost wondering, do you feel that cinema is going to a lot more out of focus shots and so forth, because you cannot achieve them with your iPhone or your Google phone or whatever, and so that there's an aesthetic that filmmakers are using because you cannot do that same things, or you can't replicate that easily with the devices in your pocket.
You mean the same depth of field that is like
with the lens.
with the lens and stuff. I don't know, but when I'm shooting something like that, I'm definitely trying to grab some I want it to look more cinematic than something I shot on my fucking phone, right? Yes,
but I have to tell you,
I haven't really thought of it like that.
Have you thought about how many films now have things that are out of focus?
Yeah. The new generation is all digital, and they're not doing lenses and shit like we're talking about.
They're not.
Yeah, because
YouTube.
We can blame YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube really is the. let's get sound like a bunch of really old guys complaining about technology.
No, I love YouTube. I really do. I made a lot of money off of YouTube, so I can't bash them.
Well,
But it's a
that's-
YouTube style, you know,
yeah,
jump cuts
but
and all
like
that
the
stuff.
the vlogger style, which is you know, just basically autofocus, auto settings, jump cuts. It just doesn't. It doesn't. There's no like why did you cut that there? You know what I mean? That
Right,
sort of
right.
thing bothers me, and I'm a snob. I'm a snob.
Yeah.
I will admit it. I'm a filmmaking snob. I want things to look like a movie, or look like you intentionally shot something that way. But what's so cool is that's what I was saying. The experimental nature of you putting like that magnifying glass. I keep coming back to that, but that's like
Yeah.
real. That's like that's totally unique to your film. You know what I mean?
It is, but again, it has a purpose. Like it has
Yeah.
a storytelling purpose in my mind, and you know Matthew Bloom and I worked very hard on trying to create the look for the film, and I was extremely particular about it to the point that I drive people out of their goddamn minds, and then our camera Reed Baum, who then ended up doing some of the shooting because we did a bunch of pickups that we had to do.
Yeah.
But all the snow stuff I pretty much shot myself because I wouldn't let anybody go out with me because it was pretty bad. They're shutting down roads and stuff, and everybody's like at home, and I'm going down a major highway with a freaking red camera strapped to my back.
Did you Did you time your production for that, or did you wait for snow and then just go grab shots?
We just grabbed shots over the
Okay.
course of time. So our principal photography on the film was about 4 weeks, but then we picked up shots. We probably picked up another, like honestly, 16 days after the fact,
Yeah.
just because we changed some stuff in post. Because this film was originally supposed to be a comedy. And when we were in production and we were kind of going through the election cycle of 2016, everybody's just so gravely affected by what was going on. And I have actors in my film that are very socially aware and very politically aware. And so, when you're in the edit, it just wasn't working right. And so we realized that we had something a lot more profound on our hands.
Yeah.
And so we had to massage it. We had to figure it out. We had to work it out. But it was also a challenge in doing that because it also had to make sense with the web series still. So we had to make sure that everything fit together in the long run. But so like 40% of the film, 3 people shot.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Can you tell us? I mean, that was my next question. Was why did you? What was the thinking behind doing the YouTube video? How did it work? You know, the YouTube
The web series?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so you realize that the web series is not really available on YouTube.
You keep saying
it's available.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's available through our site, billboardmovie.com.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of promo stuff up on YouTube, but it's all through our site.
Yeah.
Just so that, and the back end of it is Vimeo, and it's going to be launched on other platforms as well.
Yeah.
But not necessarily YouTube.
I guess I just assumed YouTube when it said web series.
Yeah, that's what
Oh
you
my
did.
gosh! Why do you assume that? Why do you assume that?
Because I've never seen a web series anywhere else, I guess.
Oh, really? You've never seen
They're
a
everywhere.
web series on what was the High Times was a web series was started as a web series on Vimeo and then it went to HBO.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
He doesn't remember things.
I only watch feature films on Vimeo from indie filmmakers. That's the only reason I go there.
And you only watch web series on YouTube.
Well, actually, I never watch web series.
Oh my god.
I don't have the attention span.
They're shorter episodes for somebody who doesn't have an
They're shorter
attention span.
Yeah, I'm bored after the second one.
All right, stop talking. Let him answer your stupid question.
Right, so what was the strategy of the web series and how did it work? Yeah.
I just wanted to tell a different perspective of the story. I wanted to focus on, the 4 people in the contest, not necessarily the radio station, and also it's a completely different storyline than what's in the film.
Yeah. So
Did you use it for promotion?
Yeah, I was about to say, were you
No,
using
not
it-
at all. No, it
So
was
you'd
all
already
fun.
financed. You'd
Yep.
already financed and cast and everything. Okay.
Yep.
I just thought you would use that for... I thought that was a promotional gag.
Not at all. Nope, not at all. No, because that's the one thing that Billboard's very different than a lot of my transmedia making peers is I've created it all for content purposes, not for marketing
Yeah, the
purposes.
tease. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's all been part of the original concept from day one.
Okay.
So you, first of all, you have a lot of characters in this film. A lot. Like we shot a feature film 2 years ago. We're just about done with it.
Awesome, congrats.
Thank you. We shot 115 pages in 9 days. The only reason we were able to do that is because there are like 4 fucking people in our movie. You have something like it. I didn't count. Something like 10 or 15
and 2 stars
returning characters who don't just show up once. You know, they're like recurring, and at least. And so, what I want to know is, how did you manage? And Eric Roberts, who is a known actor,
and the girl in there, she was a little
Heather
older.
Matarazzo.
Yeah.
So
she had 2 famous people in there.
Well, Leo Fitzpatrick, the guy with the beard, was in Kids and Bully.
Okay.
And then John Robinson was a lead in the movie Elephant, as well as Lords of Dogtown.
Oh, shit, Elephant, man. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Have you seen Elephant, Brad?
No, but I think I saw Lords of Dogtown.
God, Elephant.
It was a kid with the long blonde hair in Lords of Dogtown.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
So you financed this. I think I read in your credits, at your end credits, you thanked your Indiegogo supporters. Did you finance solely through like a crowdfund?
I'm horrible at crowdfunding. So, so you asked the first question about the actors first. So let's go there. So we ended up having, I think it was 62 speaking roles.
Okay.
There was one day that we had over 200 people on set, if not more than. Hold on, what was it? It was 201 people extras, and then we had I think it ended up being there was a whole total of 260 people on set between crew and cast that day.
Jeez.
And so I've always believed in that you need to have more characters in a film than less, because I like to try and be as authentic and as real as possible.
Yeah, to real life.
I actually talked to, I had the pleasure of meeting Robert Altman at Sundance one year, and he and I sat down and had coffee, and I asked him that specific question. I said, why do you have so many characters in your films? He's like, have you ever gone through a day and seen the same people 4 times?
We do, but
you can't argue with Robert Altman.
I'm like, no. He's like, that's why, and so I took that to heart, and that's why I have a shit ton of people in all my films, and it is a logistical challenge.
Yeah.
But the thing is too, it's like I also too is oftentimes work with first time crew people, because where I'm from, we just don't have a crew base. So I end up having to teach people. And like this gentleman by the name of Ryan Walsh just was like kicked ass in terms of keeping everything organized and everything else. Like I taught him what needed to be done and don't deviate from this. And so he was disciplined enough to be able to do that and, like keep blinders on and keep things focused and keep things moving, which I'm extraordinarily grateful for. So it's just not me trying to keep everything straight. I have other people that help me with that.
Right.
And then what was the second part of that you asked about?
Well, I was asking about financing, but you also had like a bunch of locations. Like there was your movie doesn't settle into one place. Like
there is one main location.
There's one main location, but your scenes are quick and you jump around to multiple locations so often that your movie never. And the interesting thing about that is that you never really. A lot of times with smaller movies, smaller films like ours, and I'm going to use ours as an example, our movie feels like it takes place and it could have been like a play.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because because there's so few locations, but you had so many locations and so many people, your movie never gets like restless. If you know what I mean by that. Like you just never really feel like, how much longer is this? That sort of thing.
I think he also did a really good job of making the one location look like different locations sometimes.
Yeah. So talk about financing and handling all of that stuff, because you also the authenticity. Like I guess you shot at an actual radio station.
Oh, we did. We actually ended up doing all that set dressing ourselves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we ended up going in and creating all the crazy look of the whole thing, and even the walls we brought in differently. I wanted it to feel more confined in Casey's office, so I brought in paneling to make it feel like a jail. Yeah. And also too, is I wanted the light to be able to bounce off that to be yellowish green, and that's one reason why we chose that.
Yeah.
And so like we literally dressed that completely, but it was a college radio station. And it was a bitch to shoot in because it's a cinder block building in the middle of August, and without being able to put AC on, it was a sweat pit.
That was our first film. That was a sweat pit.
Yeah. Well, you know what that feels like. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me get into the financing of this thing. Yeah. And so I did this very differently, and I approach filmmaking in a very different way than most of my peers, where I try, and when I'm in the creation stage, I try and figure out ways of creating cash flow very early on. So what I ended up doing was, I have a couple of tricks of the trade, but one of the things that I did was I sold the billboard spaces in the project itself. So we ended up being cash flow positive before we ever shot a frame of film. So we ended up doing that. We had, I have about 8% of the film that's been done by private equity investors, because I'm horrible at asking people for money. I did do a crowdfunding campaign that I failed miserably at. Horribly at, because I have a hard time asking people for money. I think that's one reason why the remaining of the budget came from my own pocket. I firmly believe that filmmakers have to have skin in the game to be able to ask other people for money. Yeah. And also, too, it's like my wife and I have a lot riding on this, but at the same time, I take the all-in mentality that if I don't risk everything that I have for my latest endeavor, then how can I have a lot of excess desire to succeed? Like my last film on Search, I refinanced my house twice. With this one, I only had to do it once, and so it's just crazy. Like that's what I believe in, you know.
On this one, I only had to do it once.
But it's like, and that's what I believe, and it's just one of those things that that you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in your mission, and I have a hard time doing things, although the problem that I'm having is all of my projects kept getting bigger and bigger, so I do need to try and figure out a way to bring in outside capital, because you know, I don't put anything to waste. Like I've been teased by other producers that I would literally, and I'm not kidding, use the same screws 3 times in production. That like I don't throw anything out, and so we just reuse stuff. Yeah. You know, and it's just important because you have to be very, very fiscally responsible when you're dealing with other people's money, and so especially your own. And so, like, I've been very frugal on this thing. I've had very devoted people working with me. I believe in paying people, you know, and I'm not looking for anything for nothing. But I do create great opportunities for investors because of how I've mitigated risk by having so many different pieces of content that drive revenue to the bottom line. We had the promotional aspect of it because we actually green screened all the billboards in production, so we could actually change those out in different places around the world. So we did some things pretty smartly in those regards. It's just a matter of financing a film is a bitch. It really is. Yeah. And the thing is, too, is I have a hard time, you know, with people like thinking that, oh, well, I'll just work with other people's money. Like I have a hard time with that. Like I don't mind like a 50-50 mix if I had 50% equity, 50% of my own, or something along those lines. But it just is a matter of like trying to think through it a little bit.
So that's interesting. So
I want to ask about the casting process. Like, did you specifically go for Eric Roberts, or how did you?
Sure. So I actually the first person that I cast for the film, because the web series was already cast, so the 4 Billboard sitters was already locked in,
right?
Because we already shot with them. But I cast John Robinson first because I liked his sensibility in Elephant and also in Lords of Dogtown, that I felt like he'd be a great Casey. And then I ended up casting. I wanted to work with actors that worked in renowned and controversial independent films. So that's why I gravitate towards kids, and also Welcome to the Dollhouse, hence Leo Fitzpatrick and Heather Matarazzo. And so thankfully they responded to the script, and I ended up casting them. And then Eric Roberts actually submitted to us, which I was pretty surprised by, because his son is in a rock band, and so he gravitates towards alternative music and stuff, and so that's how we ended up casting Eric. Is literally got a submission from him
through the radio station thing you were doing.
Yeah, but
no, well, actually, a combination of that and then, because obviously we put those URLs in all the casting notices, but through a casting director, Tony Cusimano.
Nice. Well, the other thing about your film is it's got I don't know if I mentioned it before, your score and your sound design was solid.
Thank you.
The score, a lot of times indie films don't get to use like a live orchestra. So I don't know if you did or not, but
we did.
It feels like a live orchestra. I could tell that it's like real strings, is what I was about to say.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah, and so
that's incredible. That's
my
fucking
composer
awesome.
is actually my childhood best friend. Like Pat and I've known each other since second grade.
Yeah.
And so we have a very different way of communicating, especially when it comes to creative, where he knows what I want by me basically giving him like a color palette and a tone and a tempo and the beats of what I want it to be. And then I let him create. And then we go back and we adjust things and everything else. But that was done by, I think, one musician that did all the strings, and then another musician that I believe I think they did woodwinds, some clarinet and so forth, and then Pat on percussion and also guitar.
Well, that's very cool, because that's something that a smaller indie film, I keep saying smaller, I don't mean your movie is tiny, but you know what I mean, like an indie film that was put together through a grassroots effort. Mm-hmm. A lot of time the score is electronic, not necessarily techno electronic.
Yeah.
But
I can't do that. Like the thing is, like it's like, you know, I'm you know, call me old school. I don't know, but it's like there's nothing. If you would see my last feature film, In Search Of, Pat also did the score to that.
Yeah,
the score alone will give you goosebumps.
That's
and
awesome.
It's like and that's the thing. It's like I firmly believe in creating a piece of cinema, you really have to respect the craft.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of like, I'm not talking like, you know, Pat's not cheap, but he's not overly expensive either, you know, and things. And so like, you know, but he's an amazing musician. He's an amazing musician.
Yeah.
And so the beauty of it all though too is I end up having people that do two things that are very gifted at two things. Like for instance, my sound mixer and sound post-sound tech was also my carpenter on the film. so just like, they always end up working. They always end up doing two different jobs.
Yeah.
You know, and so it just is important. So just one of those things that I feel is extremely important to the picture.
Well, it goes back to the whole idea, at least for this film, not the whole idea, but the whole like theme of is like the terrestrial radio, like binary things.
Yep.
So your score is binary. It's like analog, not binary. I mean analog.
Yeah.
It's like it was real. It existed. A human being laid their hands on it to make it happen, to create the sound that goes into the microphone that was recorded by another human being. Not just like, and there's nothing wrong with doing it the other way, but
it also depends on the piece though too. Like you got to think about. What is his name? Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails, what he did with like you know, The Social Network, and like all the electronic and everything else was just brilliant for that piece, for that film. So it also depends, and also then you think about Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah,
and it's a matter of you know what I mean. So like all that, like there was some, I believe, instrumental in it, but a lot of it was symphonic.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of playing with these sorts of things. It all depends on the film as well. I'm a very, very authentic kind of real kind of filmmaker, and that's kind of like how I gravitate towards things. Like my next feature will have its own score, will have everything else and things, but it's like it all depends on the piece. Like, you know, I think we've been doing score for every single one of our films now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
Well, Trent Reznor, I mean, that's different. That's not what I'm. That's different because that guy, he's a wizard. Like, and he's in there like putting his hands and signature on every little sound that he makes. A lot of times, indie films they end up with they hire a composer who's great composer and all that stuff, but he's basically sitting there in front of a keyboard and he's attaching sounds to the notes he's playing on the keyboard, which is cool. It's great. It's perfect. I have 3 films that have been scored that way, but you can tell it's amazing. You can hear the cello, you can hear the violins, you can hear someone breathing life into those like vibrations. It's amazing. It's cool, and it's the first thing that jumped out to me about your movie is like the score. That's live. Those are live musicians, and if they weren't live musicians, I wanted to find out who your sound canvas guy was because they sounded like real. So it's amazing.
Yeah, we just spend a lot of time on every aspect of the film. That's the thing. It's like this stuff doesn't happen overnight, especially when you're limited on resources. You have to do a balancing act. It's either a lot of money and little time, or a lot of time with little money.
You can either get things done fast, well, or cheap, but not only two of those three things.
Right.
I think that's the saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. It's like, and even with all the score too, all the source music, that's all bands from WTYT 960. And so, we used WTYT 960 two different ways. One was as a way to get bands attached to the project so that we could then market to their fans. So it's kind of like, one of those, that was something that was in our mindset. But then also, two, as a platform for bands to be able to be promoted, because we spend a lot of time promoting bands across social media that are on WTYT 960. And so we create contests for them. We ended up creating a tour for a couple of the bands, which was really awesome a couple of years back. And so we literally put money behind this, and what we've been doing, and kind of what I've been trying to preach is helping other people. But I literally am doing it. I'm not just talking about. We actually do it. And so we also created a way for of casting where we had people create profiles and a video stating why they'd feel they'd be a great Billboard sitting contestant. And you can find a lot of these submission videos on YouTube now because we had to archive them somewhere, but originally they were on our site. And so it's just a fun way for more people to get involved with the project.
That is audience building. I don't know if you were thinking of it like that, but that is audience building. You're drawing in people, having them create an interest in the thing that doesn't even exist yet. That's incredible. What you were saying earlier about the craft, about I have always looked at filmmaking, and the more I do it, the more I'm like, this is like me using my hands to shape something into something that didn't exist into something else. It's like, I don't sculpt, I don't do wood carving or anything like that, but I do make movies. And it's like using your hands and create something from scratch. It's like making a biscuit, except it's a film. And there's time and effort and energy that goes into, like, when you're making a biscuit, like mixing it just right. It's not just Bisquick and water. You know what I mean? Right.
Where do you get your inspiration from? Where do you get the inspiration from for your projects? What do you do that brings you to the gestation of an idea?
They just come to me. I might have a conversation with somebody. I might be thinking about something. I might be out on a run and an idea hit me. The last thing I wrote was an idea that I had from pondering my meditations, and I knocked out a screenplay based on an idea that downloaded to my brain one day. They come from all over the place. What about you?
Well, see, it's interesting. It's interesting because it depends on where I'm at with the process. Mm-hmm. When I'm shooting and when I'm editing, I try not to watch much. Of feature films and so forth, just because I don't want to be influenced by anything else. But I find a lot of inspiration in art museums more than anything else. Yeah. In terms of even how composing a shot, the color palettes of things, like what is influencing my thought process in terms of what I want to create. Music plays a lot to do with that as well. Yeah. And it's, you know what I mean? So it's interesting, hearing how other people, what inspires them to create and what they get the most influence from. And that's it's always something very interesting to me.
Well, I would say my ideas normally start from a feeling. What's this feeling? Oh, okay, what if a person felt that because of this? And then the story just unfolds from there. I don't ever know. People ask me all the time, where do you get your ideas? Where'd you get that? It's I don't know. But once it's in my head, that's where the yarn starts to, unfold. And it can come from anywhere. It can come from an existential conversation I have with somebody. I'm probably going to have ideas based on our conversation we're having right now. Brad's napping, but but the craft thing is I put up with, have a day job, or it's not even just a day job. It's going through life where you have to do things this way, you have to do things that way. When I'm sitting down to make a movie, that is my place to do it my way. It irritates Brad, but I will sit here and spend an hour to get a 1 second section exactly right.
Because you're copying and pasting a frame of film so that you have a
right?
freeze
Yeah,
frame.
yeah. Like that ties right into that.
That's what drives me insane when I know you can right click. I keep telling you, just right click it. You're like, no, I'm going to do it this way.
But it's like my way. It's like my process of like immersing myself into the thing, and it's my way. It's my place in the world to where I can be as specific and meticulous as possible, or not, depending on how I feel about that particular section. And when I'm done with it, that's a Beckmeyer thing. You know what I mean? And there's no other place where you can do that. And I have always looked at it like, well, not always. Over like the last decade, I started thinking of it like making something, like making, like I was saying, like a statue or like a wood carving or something that you're making with your hands. Because I'm sitting there nudging frame by frame into place. And Brad too. When I say I mean us. But I think I'm the more meticulously anal about certain things.
Well, we just get anal.
About different things.
I'm not going to say we get anal. Not going to say that. But you get picky on things that don't matter to me, and then I'll get picky on things that don't matter to you.
That's because they don't really matter.
Oh.
Your things don't matter.
Okay. I'm glad we figured that out.
Yeah, well, I figured it out a long time ago. No. But yeah, it's my one little like bubble cave area where it's like, this is directed by Beckmeyer. This is going to be exactly what I want it to be, or as close as I can get it to be that. And it's craft. It is like the thing that excites me. Look how excited I am right now. I'm just thinking about it. I just want to make stuff that has my stamp of like my energy on it. You know what I mean?
How much of self though is in your projects? Like, because I have found that I end up doing. There's a lot of me in all my projects. There's a lot of my background, a lot of my projects. And it doesn't start out that way, but it ends up being something in it. Like, you know, my guys joke around with me saying like, and also ladies, mind you, I don't just work with dudes, but it's you know, that this film has become autobiographical because of, you know, I am living the entrepreneur struggle. And it's very true. And it's very true. Like, you know, I've done... it's pretty. I don't want to say about the film, but it's like it has become very autobiographical. Yeah. And like my next film is even more so. And it was always meant to be that way. And from the outset, it is that way. But it's fascinating of, you know, reading criticism of world-renowned authors as a kid and trying to understand where their id was. In terms of, was it somewhat autobiographical? Was it autobiographical? Was it completely fictionalized? And then does that fictionalization end up accounting for their own charisma? And so that fictionalization of their characters ends up being part of their own persona, and then they try and live that persona themselves? And how much does the art influence the person? How much does the person influence the art? Like, all these things fascinate me.
Yeah.
I know damn well that I'm very influenced by my art, and I work all the time. Like the people that work with me like laugh at me because I don't have many hobbies because all I do is work. But I love doing what I do. Like I write almost every day. I fuck shit up and I have to fix it, and you know what I mean. And it's like you know, I'm being dead serious, and so like I do like, you know, I love bike riding. I love spending time with my girls, my amazing wife. But it's just a matter of outside things I just don't have time for because I love doing what I do. Yeah. And it's one of those things that unless you do it, you're an artist. Yeah. You're an artist that loves being in the studio more than love being anyplace else because they're going into the different crevices of their mind to be able to create something that they can share with the world. Yeah. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. For me, parts of me are buried deep inside every single character somehow. Every now and then I'll be watching something back or editing something, and I realize, oh, that person, and it's so weird because what that person just said in that scene is something that I have felt for 20 years, and it's obvious to me that's how you make it personal. That's how you make it, like, to make something personal is how the more personal you can get is how you will eventually connect with an audience, because they can feel the reality, the authenticity in there. I wouldn't say that any of the things we've made in the past 5 or 6 years are autobiographical in any way, but they are very personal because my shit, Brad's got shit. I mean, I write a lot on my own, but Brad and I wrote our feature film together, and we've got personal shit buried deep inside the reactions to things from characters. You know, the character reacts that way because I remember how I felt that way one time, and that's how we can put our passion into it because we believe in that moment right there.
Right.
And that's what feels good.
Yeah, it's funny because we've watched our film over 100 times. It feels like, but there are always moments that will make us laugh, because that they were authentic things that came from us.
They're real, or it's an inside joke that we somehow figured out how to make into the thing.
Yeah,
and it's how we, as creative people or artists, it's like I really feel like the more personal, the more embarrassing your thing can be to put in front of people, like in terms of content or what it's about or what people are saying or feeling, is the closer you can get to having an audience go, I felt like that before. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting because how people perceive things too sometimes doesn't end up being how you intended either.
Right.
And
well, your film is about that a little bit.
It is, and I believe very strongly in story R&D as well, where I'll test things in front of audiences. We did a series of sneak previews this past fall, and we ended up adding a little bit more to the film because of it. And so, like, I'm constantly listening. And when I was younger, I never liked to watch my films in front of an audience because I think I was too immature.
And but so, it's also gut-wrenching.
Oh, it is. But now I like to listen to see how people are responding, because then I think about it from a marketing perspective. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the kind of like where I've tuned into, because I need to know who my market is so that I can market to them and try and make money off of what I've been doing.
Right. Well, you know, like, I don't know if you maybe have heard this before, but Judd Apatow, when he makes a movie, he does test screenings. Of course, he's making comedies, but not that there's anything wrong with that. But he sets recorders throughout the audience and records them and sets them to the time code of the movie, so they can tell precisely where people were laughing and how long they laughed, and if they didn't laugh where they thought they would, and that will dictate to them how they maybe the adjustments they should make in their edit. And,
that's smart. It's absolutely smart.
It's brilliant. It's frustrating and tedious and time consuming, I imagine. But if you're trying to make something, I mean, really, people are only going to see your movie for the first time once. If you want them to like your movie, you have to like it on the first time. Like, not for me, the only movie that I've ever fallen in love with after I hated it the first time was The Big Lebowski. It is now currently my favorite comedy ever, but I did not like Big Lebowski first. But it's not like that. But he goes in there scientific about like where the people laughed and precisely where. And then he thinks, oh, well, basically, if people are laughing here, we need to draw this out a little bit so the next line isn't covered up. That as practical as that, but also just the timing of maybe if we tighten this up a little bit, people would laugh at it where they're not laughing now. It's pretty cool.
It's been fascinating that in the sneak previews that we literally have had people that saw the film multiple times over the course of at different locations, for that matter, which is really strange. Not strange, it's awesome. I mean, because people liked it enough that they wanted to see it again to try and figure out more stuff in it. And that's one thing too. It's like my stories are pretty layered that, you know, upon the first watching, you're not going to get everything. You generally don't get everything until like the third or fourth screening of them. And that's literally just how I create. And so it's been fascinating to then hear from those people being like, you know, how their perspective has changed over time, and things as well. And so it's a pretty cool process.
Well, it is nerve-wracking watching your stuff in front of people, but I tell my students all the time, I say, look, because I make them watch it with me in class, and that's where I watch and grade their stuff in front of everybody, and we talk about them. That if you make something,
so you're a hard ass? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, well, I look, guys, and I can tell you now, the panic of having to show it to people has made them better, because they will shit stuff out if I let them, and it will be crappy. But if they know the class is going to watch it, and I'm going to sit there and watch it, and we're going to talk about what was right or wrong or what they could have done better, like, because I'm trying to teach, but they have freaked out more about the effort that they're putting into something. And that's what I'm thinking about when I'm deciding if I'm going to cut a corner on someplace. I'm like, if I cut this corner, is someone going to notice that I cut this corner? And I'm going to have to sit here and watch this cut corner with a group of people and be totally fucking paranoid that someone's going to see, Beckham, I cut a corner there. It's like, I'm guilting myself sometimes into whatever. But if you make something that people don't see, it's like the tree in the forest thing. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to see it, did it really exist? It's how it is about filmmaking. If you make a movie that people don't watch, what's the point?
Right.
And you want people to watch it and like it. So whatever works for you. We haven't ever really done test screenings. We've sent links to filmmakers or friends or whatever and said, what do you think about this? Of course. But I would our one screening for our film was so complicated. We were trying to sell tickets to it and blah, blah, blah. And because we had to pay for a venue, and it was so stressful just to get, not stressful really, but it was like so complicated just to get that one night. Where are you doing your test screenings? At like actual venues, or just inviting people over to your house? Or
no, I actually go to theaters too, because I also want to test my DCPs and also my coloration, also my sound mix.
Yeah.
So I go to different theaters around the state to be able to do that, and also too is then we also monitor it for marketing purposes and trying to figure out who our market is.
Right.
And so it's been invaluable. It's been extremely invaluable to do, and it's something that I always do.
So are you renting out the theater for the night? Is that what you're doing? Do you have partnerships with the movie theater, or you basically just like four-walling that room for the night?
It depends. Sometimes I four-wall. Sometimes I actually do a split because people are actually paying to see the film.
Okay, right.
Okay. I am a capitalist whore. I'll admit.
Well, I mean, you got to pay for this shit somehow. It's like you can't just give it away.
Yeah. But so we do a combo of the two.
Okay, all right. So distribution. I think I read somewhere on your IMDb that you got distribution for your film, right? You got it picked up by distribution.
Okay. So let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
So nobody wanted. So like a lot of the different distributors had seen the film. Not all of them, but some of them did.
How did you get it in front of them? Did you film festival? Did you invite them?
No. I've had enough success in my career that they'll look at my stuff.
Oh, well, fuck you.
I sound like no, seriously, because I've always made money.
That's cool.
And so that's the thing. It's so a matter of like I've got a track record, so distributors are willing to take the time to see what I've created.
Awesome.
And so some of them, passed on it because they felt that it was too small. That how it's going to play in Des Moines, Iowa.
Right.
And I'm like, this is how it will be, and so forth. So I respect that. But then there's some that I did not want to even work with, because I would literally ask the question is like, how would you market this film?
Yeah.
And they would say, by gut instinct. And I'm like, what?
What's that mean?
And they're like, yeah, like by gut instinct. I'm like, that's horseshit. And
show me the book where gut instinct is a thing.
Yeah. And so done all this testing on it. And so we knew who our market was. And so we ended up working with a distributor, Paladin, Mark Ehrman, who was the president of Lionsgate and Think Films. And we were working with him, and then suddenly in January he passed away. So his company pretty much dissolved. So that left us picking up the pieces to try and go forward. So I'm kind of self-distributing now because I don't have a choice, because we're too far along in the process to stop.
Right.
And so, I am, basically booking theaters myself. We're doing the marketing in-house. We're doing all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
I do have a digital distributor that I've worked with in the past because I've had success. And so they're more than happy to take my films, thank God, just because, they made money off me, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So like as it stands right now, I'm literally booking theaters myself.
So, and I'm sure... Well, maybe not. Since you were planning on distribution in the first place, there may be something that maybe you didn't even have a budget for. Like you didn't plan to have to self-distribute, right?
No, not at all. Not
so
at all.
how are you?
But it's always built in my DNA, though, that I will try and push to succeed regardless. So
yeah.
I am cognizant of it because I have self-distributed almost all my films before. The only film that I lost money on is the only film that we sold to a distributor. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm not talking like my wife and I are living like high in the hog by any means. Where we lead a decent lifestyle, but not by any means an opulent one by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
We still worry about our girls getting paying for their tuition at college, all these sorts of things. We still don't have a retirement plan. So because I keep investing in my films,
you keep refinancing your house. I'm with you, man.
I get
it.
And that's the thing. And so I think about it in production of that I need to allocate certain resources for distro, and so I do factor that into the game plan.
Okay, so when you're talking about you have a digital distributor that you work with, do you mean like iTunes, Amazon, places, Hulu, places like that? So is that separate? Has that traditionally been separate for you? Like if you were to go through like a distributor, like you were talking about, are you working out like percentage deal with them, or they get money and you get money at the same time, or they, like you said, the only movie you lost money on was something you outright sold to a distributor?
Right.
So are you working out like when Brad downloads your movie from iTunes, the distribution company gets whatever and you get whatever percent, right? Is that how
Correct.
You're talking about doing it?
Yeah. Okay. And so I will never sell any of my films outright. Because I feel like the only way that I have any value or worth for my company is that if I still own the rights to my projects.
Right.
Because they still return quarterly royalties. That's an ongoing income. And that sort of thing. That's how you have to think about this stuff. Is like people have to think through the entire process. I don't think about filmmaking as a lottery because very, very few people get that. And so I've kind of calloused myself over the course of time to realize that this is a long game, not a short game.
Right.
And so I need to position my entire career as a career, not as a film. And so Billboard, everything I learned with Billboard, it's been a big R&D experiment for the next project.
So it's what you're talking about is creating passive income, that stuff that just keeps returning on itself over and over and over again.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but I it's always a matter of trying making money from the get-go. Like, so my theatrical, I have to we're figuring out a way to actually make money on it, which not many people do.
Well, because I mean, a lot of indie filmmakers aren't even worried about getting in theaters anymore because it's like.
But why is that though? Why is that though?
I would, and for me, I would love to play in a theater, but it's because I love going to a movie theater. It is a ritual of mine. It's my escape. As often as I can, I like going to sit in a movie theater. Even if I'm going to see a movie that I don't really care to see, the process of going to a movie theater is very centering for me. I love it. It's a dark room, lights fade, all that stuff. But I think a lot of people have shied away from trying to even worrying about theatrical distribution because it's just harder to get into theaters now. Oh,
it's a bitch.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I'll be the first one to admit that. And that's what
because you're doing it.
Oh, I do. And the thing is, like yesterday, all I did was I drove around to the theaters that are showing my film and handed them the one sheets and trailer myself. So I met them, looked them eye in the eye, and realized that they have a partner. And so I look at this as a long game. Like, so that means I could book their theater again in the future because they know who I am. And then look at the whites of my eyes and realize that this is a transaction. It's just like sales. You have to your greatest sales happen in person, not like on the phone,
right?
Or via email. That's horseshit. And so it's like, and so I take it very seriously, and because I look at this as I want to create. Eventually, like I have a feeling I'm going to end up starting a distribution company because of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've made too many contacts and kind of know too much about it not to at this point.
Well, yeah, and plus that's another like stream of income for like you said, like your company. But I would go with a distributor who was owned by a filmmaker who understood the process and understood what the filmmaker was going through, and not just some executive.
Yeah.
So do you feel like so our movie was very small. Like we had a couple of false starts.
Why do you keep saying small? Do you say small in terms of budget, small in scope?
In terms of budget. So
that means nothing.
Right, and you're right about that. So that's why I'm about to ask you this. So when I think of our movie, or movies like ours that really were like handcrafted by me and Brad and like our crew, we had like 4 people, me, Brad, and like 2 or 3 other people, and so do you feel like that there is a path towards a profitable distribution process for I won't say all films, but for most films? Like do you feel like you could find a way to make money off of any film that is out there?
No, because I need to know. I have to know if I can market it. That's the biggest
Right.
thing. And if I watch a film and I know I can market it, like I saw a film at Sundance. Actually, it wasn't even at Sundance, at Slam Dance, that I know I can market. And they're going through. They're trying to shop at the distributors and stuff, and they're not getting any deals. And I know what I would do for the film, and I told the filmmaker that. And so it's kind of like, seeing if they want to dance or not, and that's the thing. And so they hired a producer's rep, where I'm like, why the fuck did you hire a producer's rep? I mean, not to say that you shouldn't hire a producer's rep. They do a good job, and they have the contacts and everything else.
Yeah.
But like, I know I can make them money. I know that. Yeah. And it sounds crazy, but I have to feel very passionate about it. And my team has to understand the vision for it and everything else too. Yeah. Because I'm not one dude doing this. I have a team of people that work with me. So I actually have overhead. I have studio costs. I have all these things. So I'm not saying that I can make money on every film that I see or that's out there. Yeah. I think the filmmakers have to decide that for themselves. But I do think that if you're diligent enough, you can make money at it. And the thing is, like, I believe in, I wrote this article one time. I don't even know who the hell it was for, but it was the $10,000 screening, which is something that I very much adhere to, that if I cannot make $10,000 net on the first screening of my film, I should not make that film.
Okay. So I want to hear about that.
Okay, so what you do is, sure, I'll tell you. I can try and find it someplace.
Okay, yeah.
But so what it is so I make a film, I promote the living hell out of it. I've got a pretty good handle on PR. Yeah. I will rent the absolute largest theater that I can, and then I promote the living shit out of it. I have tiered tickets. I have a $10 ticket. I have a $35 ticket, and then I have a $125 ticket. And so, the $10 just for the film, the $35 is for the film and after party, the $125 is, a pre-party film and after party. Yeah. And so you sell the living shit out of them. Yeah. Right. You literally, and then you have, merchandise for sale in the lobby. And you literally make a run for it. And that's literally how you do it. So you promote it, you buy advertising, you do all these sorts of things. But that's how you do it.
I'm silently shaking my head while Beckemar's looking at me.
We're laughing because it was so hard on like a no budget, zero, like close to no budget, for us to even get 100 people to show up at our premiere screening. And by the way, it just was.
Did you
months,
do PR?
We tried. I did what I could. I'm from Orlando.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah.
You couldn't get 500 people in a goddamn theater.
I couldn't even fill the theater, which had like 230 seats in it.
You have the Orlando Sentinel there that's actually owned by Times Mirror out of freaking Chicago. Did you get a review of the film?
No.
No, I couldn't get any traction. I know a couple of
Did you get radio stations? Did you
I didn't get any of that.
Nothing.
I didn't get any of that.
Did you try?
No.
Well, he says no, but we tried, but it didn't. Like, there was like a.
You didn't try hard enough.
It's like a fumbling. It's like a fumbling towards figuring it out as we went, because it was our first screening of a feature film.
I didn't know I never know what the fuck I'm doing. I just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, my first film affairs, I'm not kidding you. The opening night, I oversold the theater by 1125 people.
Yeah.
So people had to literally sit.
Well, I would love to have that fucking problem.
Yeah, that doesn't help us.
So I just hear me out. So I literally had the theater held 501 seats.
Yeah.
I sold 620 some tickets. We showed a 60 millimeter print on my first film affairs. we had the screening for, I think it was, at that time, I think it was $8, and then we had the after party for $35. There were so many people that wanted to go to this after party. I don't know why. I made over $10,000 net on the first screening of it. The film cost me $27,000. All I had to do was show it another dozen times, and I was profitable. That was the key to my success. Okay. But the thing is, this is my first film. I only took one film production class, by the way, gentlemen. One film production class. When I was at Syracuse, I talked my way into getting into grad school at Syracuse for film. After my first semester, my professor, Dana Plays, asked me what the hell I was doing in film school. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? She's like, I've never seen anybody put together a production with no money. Like, you have, go make a film for the cost of tuition, just like John Waters. And little did she know I was in John Waters' film Hairspray. And so I literally took that to heart, and so I literally packed my bags. I went home, refinanced my Jeep, and started my film company. I've been making films ever since.
See, you're a salesman that is also a filmmaker.
You laugh, but it's great. But you have to believe in it. And so the only way that you can get other people to believe in it is if you thoroughly believe in what you're doing yourself. And you believe in it blindly until people tell you that you suck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And enough people tell you that you suck, that you should move on to doing something different. And I've had my fair share of people saying that I suck, mind you, and at the same time, I'm like,
it's okay.
You don't understand my creative angst. You know what I mean? You pivot, you figure it out.
So,
but literally, you can make money at it. You just didn't try hard enough. I'll be very blunt, and I apologize if I hurt your feelings.
No, you are not hurting my feelings. That's why I asked you the question. So.
Yeah, PR and promotion are a huge, huge part of your success, and you have to. I'm horrible at social media. Yeah. Horrible at social media because I am so busy creating and so busy running everything else. I don't have time to make these posts all the damn time. And I'm honest, and I know the value in it. I totally do, but I don't have the time for my personal stuff. I'd rather work on the film stuff than my own stuff.
Right.
And so the thing is, it's like you have to take that into account, or else you will not get anywhere. You'll be stagnant.
Right. So you're suggesting, and I don't doubt you. I'm not being contrary. You're saying that right now we could say we have a finished feature film. We could say we're going to screen our film and do what we can to make $10,000 at it, even though their first time wasn't really a flop. It was a friends and family screening. Like, the screening went well. It just nobody saw it except for people that were, related to the production in some way.
So what's your question?
Yeah. Oh, my question is, you're saying that you feel like if he
believes in it, he can make a movie.
So we could take our film right now and say we're going to do another screening and do make $10,000 from our screening with the right elements of PR, marketing, and stuff like that.
Absolutely. See, because you have to think about ways of making money very early on. I do this thing called film bills. We create a tabloid for this film, where literally I sell advertising in a playbill kind of thing for the film release. So that gives even more appeal. Why are you guys laughing at me?
I'm laughing because it's fucking brilliant, but also hilarious. I believe you.
Hey, you have to make fucking money. You got to eat, right? I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden it becomes something. So when people go to the theater, they get the film bill of all the credits and the advertisements and everything else, a little bit behind the scenes stuff, and all of a sudden you elevate what you're doing to another level that they've never seen before. They're not going to the fucking movie theater down the street and able to get that. You're giving them an experience. And so you just have to figure out, you need to find somebody that's good at PR if you suck at it.
Yeah.
You need to be able to write well. You need to know what a press release is and how to write one. You need to know how to approach writers. You need to all these sorts of things. And thank God, I don't know why, but I was good at it. But you have to realize I'm a fucking standing carny. My family started in an amusement park. I lived in a goddamn amusement park. I pretty much grew up in an amusement park.
Yeah.
So you're being a carny barker is part of my DNA, and so I don't know it better.
Yeah.
So
we might try to hire you in the near future.
Zeke Zelker, where have you been all my life?
Well, no, but it's true though. Does your film appeal to a certain audience?
Yeah,
Us.
well, yeah, me and Brad. No. Yeah, no, it should. We think it does. Yeah,
It's funny.
Yeah, it's a comedy drama. It's a
People
Do you have-
laughed.
Do you have a designer? Do you have a good graphic designer that could create a great one sheet for you?
I do know people that could do that for us. Like I made the current poster, which neither one of us are a huge fan of, but it got us what we needed at the time. But yeah, like I have a graphic designer, a couple graphic designer friends. And
so do you have a theater that can hold 500 people in it?
Yeah, we're in tourist land. We've got
awesome. So do you have a nightclub that you could freaking do an after party at?
We could find one. Yeah.
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 Can you get a liquor sponsor that will they basically give you free booze? Or a beer sponsor, or a craft brewery that you could do the after party there, and then have a band or something like that there.
We could do that. We could do that. Yeah, we have a craft like.
So you already have the goddamn recipe. You have all the fucking ingredients. Just do the goddamn thing.
Well, we're going to make that attempt on our next. Film.
Well, no, I mean, I'm seriously thinking about doing another screening of our film because technically no one's seen it.
I got to tell you, In Search of, when I did the premiere of In Search of in my hometown, the venue put nobody under the age of 18 is allowed to see this movie. They literally gave it an X rating. There's a lot of nudity in it, but there's no sex. And so there was a huge. So I saw that. And I made a huge stink about it in all the press and everything else. I had attorneys show up wanting to represent me because they literally violated my copyright by adjusting my posters. And so, like, I turned that, I spun it into something positive for us. So this is a movie like, oh my God, the kids can't see it. I mean, the prudes like want to stay away because they don't want to see a tit from a dick from a goddamn.
From a dick?
Yeah, they don't know what the hell any of them is. So what I'm saying is a matter of like you have to think about this stuff and be able to adjust. Literally that it did hurt us quite a bit actually, and be honest with you, it did hurt the film because they did that to us.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's a matter of like that did not stop me from pushing it.
Well.
You have a lot of energy.
This has been a great conversation. A very illuminating conversation.
I've been at my studio since a little bit after 7 a.m. It's now 8 p.m. And I'm still going.
What drugs are you on? Because I need them too.
So far, I've eaten nuts today. I've had some coffee and a sandwich.
The last thing you need, Mr. Pink, is another cup of coffee.
I'm on coffee right now.
Well, okay, so if people want to see your film, which hopefully we've helped them get that out, what do they do? Where do you want them to go? How do they get a hold of you and all that stuff?
If they go to Billboard Movie is where most of the things will be on. They'll be able to see where the film is playing. And also as we go through the theatrical, then into digital release, they'll be able to see that there. And then also, on social media, it's Billboard Movie. Then me as Zeke Zelker. That's all my. You can find me as Zeke Zelker. And also, if they want to see the radio station, that's WTYT960.com. So it's literally Billboard Movie, Zeke Zelker, and WTYT 960, and they'll get the entire thing. And also, too, it's like I do welcome people reaching out to me with challenges and things. I about things very differently than my peers, and just one of those things that I feel that if people really had the passion and desire to make something great happen, they can. They just had to get out of their own fucking way.
Yeah. That's basically the problem I have with Brad.
You want me to get out of the way?
He's in the way. I want him out of the way.
That does not sound like a match made in heaven. I can tell you that.
I feel like I don't make things worse, but I also don't make them better. So.
Well, I was just thinking, his childhood best friend is a composer who made his movie better.
Yeah, see.
What are you giving me?
Yeah.
Nothing.
I can do the same things you can do, so I don't compliment you at all.
No, you can't do the same things I can do.
I mean, I can edit.
Yeah, but we don't let you do that either.
I don't compliment you in any way.
No, anyway, so you've been an entertaining guest, but also a great conversation. So I'm glad. I think it was you reached out to us. I don't know how that happened. But somebody messaged us on Facebook and asked us.
It's called PR.
Yeah.
But now I know who you are.
It's like a curse word.
Yeah.
To us.
Now I know who you are. You keep saying that
because we
shit.
don't do it.
You treat it. You to put the negative energy on it.
Okay.
I'm trying not to be negative energy.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have to separate. Anyway, so if you want to contact us, we're filmreveriepodcast@gmail.com. I'm Becca Meyer on Instagram and Twitter.
And I'm your vestigial twin that you can't cut off.
Yeah, my fetus and fetu.
Yeah.
So that's it for this time. Until we talk to you again, go make something. And
it's never. It's not the end anymore.
You're supposed to say to be continued.
It's
remember?
the beginning. To be continued.
To be continued.
Yeah.
And cut. Film Reverie Podcast is a production of Super Mega Ultra Entertainment and is produced by Michael Beckemeyer and Bradley Kingston. If you're enjoying this podcast, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review in iTunes. And visit filmreverie.com to listen to past episodes, and be sure to click like or subscribe wherever you find us. That's it for this time. We'll see you again next week with another episode of Film Reverie.